Welcome to Boiling Point, the podcast to motivate ever-evolving entrepreneurs and forward-thinking movement pioneers. Our hosts, filmmaker Greg Hemmings and executive coach Dave Vale, are turning up the heat in the world's business communities. Our interviews with entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and movement makers are raising the temperature of inspiration. Live from the hottest studio in this quadrant of the universe, here are Dave and Greg.
Welcome back to the Boiling Point, everybody. Thank you so much for following Dave and I in our adventures for, I don't even know how many years. You and I thought 7 years last time we chatted, Dave. 6 years, 8 years, 10, 4. I don't know. I don't know how long we've been doing this, but it's been awesome.
But long enough we have recurring guests.
We have recurring guests, and there is no guest in history that has been on the Boiling Point 3 times, the Holy Trinity, except for today.
Before today.
Kristy O'Leary, longtime friend, supporter, the incredible hero that helped Hemmings House become a B Corp way back in the day. Kristy O'Leary, also the same Kristy that brought a ton of great guests to our podcast over the years.
That's right.
And the same Kristy who is helping many other businesses get to 80 points or above so they can become B Corps as well. So Kristy O'Leary, welcome back to the podcast, to the Boiling Point. Most people listening to this have listened to every single episode in the past that we've done, including your previous 2. But for the few people who haven't, let's get an introduction from you, Kristy. And this is a chance as well. I've been following you very closely, but Dave, it'll be new for him to hear what your new business is, what you've been up to, where you're living. So welcome to the Boiling Point again for the 3rd time, Kristy O'Leary.
Wow, I'm so pleased to be back. Thank you so much for bringing me on for the 3rd time. But things are evolving, so it makes sense to have a check-in.
Yes.
Even if we just get to chat with each other about our lives and impact and all of those things. So introduction, I am in a little bit rainy today, Vancouver, loving my West Coast life, although it did take a little getting used to after the warm hugging of the Maritimes. So kind, everyone's so kind in the Maritimes. So living and working in Vancouver, enjoying working from home now in the pandemic. I do have a new business it's still a baby. It's a toddler, and I guess it's 14 months old now. So things are going really well. And our business, I co-founded with Brianna Brown. We worked together previously at a company and actually bought our practice, our impact consulting and design practice from that previous company. And Decade is a going concern. Decade Impact, aptly named. We officially opened January 1st, 2020. Mm-hmm. And so really excited to kind of usher in the most important decade in human history. For us to really avert the climate crisis and create a more just and equitable world through business. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty epic. And it's not like you're unfamiliar of this process. Like I said earlier, you helped our company become a B Corp a long time ago. And you have a really unique offering, a sub offering, which you've partnered with the BDC, I believe, to help customers and clients and friends become B Corps. So why don't you tell us about getting to 80? Because that's really exciting. And I'm either sorry or very happy that I'm sending you a whole bunch of leads. But every time I meet somebody, I'm like, you need to talk to Kristy and get into this program. I don't know if you like getting all these leads from Greg Hemmings, but I'll keep sending them if you want.
It's a real headache sending all of these amazing opportunities our way, but we can handle it.
Okay, I'll keep it up then.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, we do have the Getting to 80 program, and this is something that I kind of started dreaming about in around 2014, 2015. and was actually trying to offer to companies on the East Coast, but it was just too early. It was just too early in the B Corp movement. We didn't have enough momentum, I think, for it to really catch hold. And so we did partner with the BDC in 2018, offered our first cohort. We just started our 10th cohort yesterday of companies.
Wow.
8 companies from across Canada. And the Getting to 80 program is it's a 6-day, fast-paced, high-energy online program, no canned content, it's all live. And we help companies move through the B Corp Assessment, which, companies can do that on their own, but with guidance, it just changes the experience. And with that peer group, so the BDC generously sponsors the program, so it's available for $2,000 for a company. And we at Decade, Brianna and I kind of refer to it as our democratizing our service, because we feel, big companies are sort of getting into the habit of creating budgets for impact and sustainability in their businesses, whereas smaller companies don't have that yet. And so that was that's the kind of the nuts and bolts of the program. It's based on the B Impact Assessment. And so there are 6 days. First day is mission and governance, workers, community, environment, supply chain, like value chain, and then communication. So kind of a crash course. And we have now, I think we're up to over 50 companies that are in progress or have done the program with us.
Wow.
And our 1 year after companies complete the program, we have a 50% conversion rate into becoming certified B Corps.
Fantastic.
Amazing, because without guidance, the conversion rate's about 3%.
Wow. I didn't realize those stats. Wow. So for example, if somebody's interested in becoming a B Corp, they go to bcorporation.net or B Impact and they go through it. The conversion rate there is 3%. Like they look at the information, they might do the quick assessment and they're like, oh, that's cool. But then 3%. Okay. That's interesting. One of the things that I find that I encourage a lot of people, including all 3 of the people I sent your way in the last few weeks, is go through the assessment anyway. If you want to make a good business, it's all there. It's like a playbook to making a business plan, and it's free. And if after you go through that and realize how to structure a good company, if you want to become certified, it's just going to force you to make your business better and tighter. And that's what I think is great about it.
Do you know what, you guys? I think we should back up a little bit for the listener that might not even know what B Corp is, because we've gone like really deep. You guys are way deeper than I am. I have some knowledge and awareness, but what, for a listener who's kind of going, what is this all about? What's this? The idea of getting to 80 program, and why would I want to do that? And let's start there, and then we can maybe dive in a little deeper to help people.
Thanks, Dave. Kristy and I get a little excited sometimes, and we go right to the point. So, Kristy, let's hear what the B Corp community and movement and assessment is.
Ooh, okay. So the B Corp movement started in 2006 with the first class of companies, 15 companies in the US certified in 2007. And really it's the kind of brainchild of the founders of B Corp, Andrew, Bart, and Jay. And they had sold a company, or 2 of them had sold a company called And One Sports. And One was a social enterprise before we were using that term. They had an incredible supplier code of conduct. They had 5% of profit went to educating urban youth and providing programs for them, because it was a basketball shoe company. And they really were in touch with their users. They had a daycare. They had a basketball court. They had all of those things that make. I remember seeing an interview with Jay where he said, nobody left at 5. They left when they were tired. People stayed and had dinner together. It was that kind of company. They sold the company, and upon exit, all the good stuff was ripped out of the company. All that stuff disappeared, and it became, bottom line company. And so that was their kind of spear in the chest moment of really wanting to create a system so that entrepreneurs not only could have a good business, but that if they sold their business, that all of that goodness, all of the social and environmental and economic impact in that business would remain in the business. So really ensuring missions locked in upon sale. And so that was a big part of the impetus for the movement. It's since grown. We have 3,500 certified B Corps in the world. But since around August 2019, it's just exploded. The movement is just taking hold. And we've seen actually the pandemic has been a really interesting kind of pressure test for the B Corp philosophy of using business as a force for good. And we've seen B Corps thriving in under these in these uncertain times because they had the policies in place. They've been thinking about justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. They've been thinking about environmental impact and sustainability. So basically, it's a movement of like-minded entrepreneurs that do this massive heavy lift of going through this assessment that can have 200 questions or 1,000 questions, depending on the size of the company, or even more. I heard Danone had 1,500 questions in their assessment, but they are the largest B Corp in the world. And so really it's become something of a social movement, not only a business operations and impact tool.
Yeah, and I think that's really neat too. What you're talking about for Danone, and everybody probably knows that brand and has tasted their yogurts and other treats. It's kind of a smart assessment in a way too, where Hemmings House, my company, wouldn't be taking exactly the same journey in being assessed because it's very specific to different industries and verticals and all that sort of thing. And in a way, it really makes sense to kind of get a coach to help you get through it or be part of a forum to do it, because you can do it yourself, but there's a good chance you'll be part of the 3% that won't get through it, right?
And
No, did you say only 3% get through it?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, and what, so along the way, along the journey, you're there to support people, Kristy, or organizations. I love your description too. That's an excellent way to describe kind of the opportunity. And what I'm learning as I've been kind of a sidekick to Greg in terms of the interviews we had, is that this isn't a fringe thing either. It's like, I wouldn't call it mainstream, but it feels more mainstream or maybe just because I've had so much exposure to it myself. But you're saying, and it sounds like there's got a lot of traction in the last, 18 months or whatever it's been, right?
It's amazing. As an OG in the B Corp movement, I really started using the assessment in 2012, and then started certifying companies in 2013, 2014. The interest and the excitement and the tool itself is evolving. It's not a static assessment. It changes as well. And it's changing based on social and environmental conditions. So, we expect a new version of the assessment to come out probably within the next 2 years, and really expect environment and JEDI, that justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, to be more heavily weighted in the assessment. Okay. So it's not, it's very unusual. And it is sort of the only tool of its kind that currently exists in the world. And so really pleased that both Greg and I made those early commitments to joining the B Corp movement. And it's just such an exciting time for purpose-led business, because now we have our use case. We have our really strong business case now, which we lacked even before the pandemic. It had started to kick up, but it's amazing things are happening in the movement now. Mm-hmm.
Now, and did you launching Decade and everything? Is that what took you from East Coast to West Coast?
It's been a long, strange journey. Okay. Long, strange trip. Some of it was really fun. Some of it was not so fun. I think I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and it was so lovely that, that the perseverance really paid off. As I said, I was an early adopter, and I really believed that, I grew up in a social enterprise in rural Ontario. Everybody got credit at my parents' shop. We didn't do credit checks. If you needed bread, you got it. If you needed milk, you got it. And it was just a part of our bottom line. Like, it was just factored into the bottom line that some of that wouldn't come back to us. So I didn't really know business without purpose until I flew the nest and went out into the world and was like, this is not the way this should be done. It's just not right. And so I think we're really seeing a return to values now.
And it's market led too. It's like consumer led now, which is really exciting, because now it's not just fringe, like we said before. Now, when we see the companies the size of Danone and a bunch of Unilever companies, paying attention to this, it means once the cool kids have proven it's cool, now the followers who actually have a lot of weight are now dipping their toes, and that's what we need for a tipping point, right? And that's what we're seeing right now. I think that's what you're getting at.
Oh, I feel like we are going to reach critical mass really soon. Like, I'm so excited because, one of the things we do at Decade that I think makes us unique, there's lots of consultants out there. There's lots of folks that have expertise in different areas, and we're really generalists. And we bring design thinking and creativity to everything we do. So we're not just interested in building policies for companies or shepherding them through the assessment. We're really interested in getting to the core of the essence of their business. What's your why? What are your hows? And what's your big, hairy, audacious goal? Because I think this decade requires big, hairy, audacious goals. People need to be inspired, and they need to have something to work towards. And everybody should be able to wake up in the morning and go to work and feel like they're a part of something a lot bigger than themselves.
Do you think, is it intimidating for people or or entrepreneurs that maybe haven't completely figured out their purpose? And, I just wonder if I think personally, I went through an exercise of just creating a purpose statement. Now I haven't gone nearly as far as I could or should or will at some point with vision coaching. But it's funny because when you talk to people about purpose, the amount of and in the world of coaching, it's not an uncommon thing to come up, and the amount of people that are just, it almost feels like it's an overwhelming thought, right? Like, I have to consider that. I'm just wondering, is that a barrier for some people, in your opinion? Or, how do you help them get more comfortable with the idea that I'm Decade can help me figure this out?
Well, it is intimidating. And I feel like we take we really work really hard to be non-judgmental, really approachable, and be kind of a safe space for entrepreneurs and their teams. And so the way we like to work is that we audit the impact of the company first. And once we have that baseline, then we create roadmaps of what do we want to do? What do we need to do to be operationally and from an impact lens, good businesses? And then we get into that. What are you actually trying to achieve?
Okay.
What do you really want? What is the thought you had when you started your business that scares you to say out loud? And so when you get people into that space where they're willing to say those things and make really audacious commitments, it becomes fun. Over and over again, we see entrepreneurs that have been in their business for many years. They kind of feel like young springbucks when we're done with them, because they see their business in a whole different way and they see their team in a whole different way. But really understanding where you're starting from is critical. I think a lot of companies are really trying to develop that purpose, but if they don't see how that lives in their business now and where those opportunities are, then they may miss the mark. And then you kind of get borderline greenwashing, right?
Yeah, and that's, even if the founders aren't trying to greenwash, it's easy to slip into that by mistake.
So, and I'm aware of it, but by greenwashing, what do you mean?
greenwashing means presenting an environmentally, socially, and economically progressive company that just isn't.
Right.
I think a great, I have a lot of empathy for those greenwashers because 95% of them are doing it by accident. They don't mean to do it.
Okay.
There are, and maybe it's just my mindset that people are generally good and want to do good and want to be loving in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not trying to do that. They just don't have a clear lens on exactly what the power of their operations are,
I've got an interesting example of that, Kristy, where Hemmings House, our company, has really always focused our impact on social. And whenever we did our reassessments on the environmental side, we were like relatively low impact until you start realizing how many airplanes we fly on, et cetera. But our give back didn't really exist. So I made a goal a year ago 2 years ago to start upping that side. So we've since become 1% for the planet. And for people who don't know what that is, look it up, you'll figure it out. 1% top line revenues to environmental nonprofits. But the initiative we did a year ago was we worked with Community Forest International out of Sackville to figure out what our carbon output was. And we were able to offset all of our scope 1 carbon by buying tree woodlots that were not going to be clear cut. So therefore leaving up carbon sequestering lots that is just good for our community on a bunch of different ways. But the interesting thing here is I didn't know the difference between scope 1, 2, and 3 carbon offsetting. So I didn't greenwash too far until I realized I was like, I should understand this a little bit more. So Dave, if you're not familiar, there's 3 different ways or scopes of offsetting. And the first is just like offsetting your travel and your servers, your, things that you've got, you pay money to get, to buy something good to offset. But scope 2 is things like energy use. Like I'm in a rented building right now. So it's a little bit more of a challenge for me to figure out how to do that. And then scope 3 is even more radical and more difficult, which is more of that value chain, supply chain, really the impact of the people that we're working with. And it's deep and hard. And for me to say we're carbon neutral is an absolute lie. Although I thought we were for a month until I realized that we weren't. So that's an example, probably, of, does that make sense, Kristy? Like, would you see other people like me in that situation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. And it's not malicious. It's just that this is a new way of thinking about business. And this is a new way of considering how do we internalize the true cost of our business. Companies can no longer dump the chemicals in the river. It's just not going to work. And customers are really becoming very savvy. And I think, Greg, you're in one of the most, you have an incredible business and so important right now because the flip side of greenwashing is green blushing. So we have a bunch of B Corp certified companies and credible companies, those companies making strides towards becoming regenerative businesses that aren't talking.
Green blushing. I love it. Oh.
They're not talking, and we need them to talk. We need them to share those stories and really, really emotive, moving stories about what's possible. So, I have a billboard we often use in our sessions with companies, and it's a Danone billboard, and it's got like yogurt on it, and it says it's revolutionary, and it really is. When you think about what's happening in Danone's supply chain, they are starting a revolution, and these companies really are. And I think there's so much opportunity. I hear all the time, we work with a lot of service firms and they're like, oh, we don't have a supply chain for service. It's like, well, just because you don't make widgets doesn't mean you don't have a supply chain. And that supply chain, that's like the tip of the iceberg is what we see. And then supply chain is everything else. Mm-hmm. And so there's so much impact in there. And so how do we kind of bring that forward and make it meaningful, not only for the company, but for consumers? And this leads me to my 2 thoughts about COVID and the gifts of COVID. Well, 3 gifts, I guess. We were just speaking briefly before we started recording. I think about being dads and being able to spend more time with your kids. So I think there's a lot of people that are spending more time with the people they really care about, and kind of getting to know each other in a way that we didn't know each other before. So there's that. Second, customers want local. They're really beginning to understand the supply chain of the goods and services they buy. They don't want to buy from big boxes. They want to buy from Joe down the road because their kid goes to school with Joe. They want them to thrive too. And we need to have these livable, functioning communities. And on the East Coast, I don't have to tell you guys about, how important it is to keep communities alive. Mm-hmm. And the third gift of COVID is that we shut the world down in 4 weeks. We can do anything. All these objections of, it's in the system. We can't change it. We can't do it. It's too big. It's too hairy. It's too audacious. Those are all gone. Like those objections, they just don't hold any water. So that's my rant about.
I think, and to add to that, for those who don't know Atlantic Canada, we are 4 small provinces, small in population.
But mighty.
And there's a wall around us right now, not a Trump wall, a different type of wall, that we have essentially shut down business, physical travel between us and the rest of the country, which you would think would be detrimental to our economy. And I think it has had quite a negative impact on our economy. Yes. However, I think to your point, the great surprise is many of us are doing just fine with not getting into airplanes and doing business trips and conferences. And, that's been my thing. It's like, I'm not. And also my last rant is, besides seeing people like you in person, Kristy, the FOMO of having to go to an industry event where you think you have to go because you're not going to sell and grow your company unless you go and be present, that's gone as well. So think about conference culture. It's going to come back and it's going to be great, but it's also going to be a hybrid of digital and in person. And FOMO is not really good at but think about the expense, the financial and carbon expense to get you and I to a B Corp Champions Retreat.
Yeah.
Especially the one that we're supposed to be at earlier this year in Mexico that didn't happen. So we're
going to go. We're going to offset. We're going to go, but
we're going to go. I'm just saying in this period, it's been kind of a nice breathing time of, there's not too many planes in the sky right now. And the world needs that right now. And maybe we're going to see some innovation in that space as well. And people are just straight up not going to travel as much. But you and I are still going to end up meet up. And we're going to, Dave, this is a little story you don't know. Kristy and I talked a lot about doing a podcast led by Kristy. And it was really interesting because it was similar to Boiling Point, but really aggressive in a good way, but really calling out bullshit in the business world. And so I was like, well, listen, let's meet at the Champions Retreat, which I think was in Toronto, maybe a few years ago. New Orleans. Yeah, that's right. We went to New Orleans.
We went to that piano bar and we met Henrietta, my piano god.
That's right. That was amazing. The piano bar was incredible. So we went up and we recorded, Dave, our pilot episode, and it was great. A great conversation. And then I came home and I lost it. I had no idea where it went. So we have to redo that.
You lost the recording, not you.
Lost the recording.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't lose emotionally or anything. I just lost the actual SD card.
I think that would be like one of the things we got encouraged to do is be provocative, which I think we in our own way, but this sounds very provocative, and it would attract a whole bunch of listeners that want to debate and argue with you and want to hug you and agree with you.
And Kristy's really natural at that as a strength, as a gift is, Kristy, you're not afraid of being provocative for the greater good. And I think that's a strength. It's an absolute strength.
I think it's becoming more of a strength, and my edges are rounding off a little bit. And I think I had more of an edge when, in previous times, because I so believed that this thing was going to take hold. I so believed in it. And it kind of broke my heart. Every time somebody told me I was crazy. And so I was crazy enough. And Brianna Brown, my incredible co-founder, was crazy enough to decide that this is what we were going to do. And it's just, so I feel I'm provocative, and I think it's important to be provocative. It's also, we got to bring so much empathy to this practice, because everybody's in a different kind of headspace, and a different space, like a different path. And so we have to have, I really try to have respect for where everybody is in their own journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's cuss and call folks out if they need calling out. I think that's important.
Do you know what's interesting? You like, I don't recall exactly the last conversation, but I do, when you talk about rounding the edges, I've got that sense, in talking to you today, because as soon as I thought I was kind of setting up you to really bash people for greenwashing. And then you say, I have some empathy or compassion for people. And I'm like, it wasn't what I was expecting. So that says a lot about kind of where you are in this journey as well.
I'm growing.
Yes.
We're all growing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry. I was going to say, but it's so interesting though, because, this evolution everyone's going through in whatever space they are, and how, how righteous maybe I would have felt about a particular thing. I still may still feel strong, but not righteous. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's a different kind of, there's a different lens on some things. And I don't know if that's just, it comes with age or maturity or whatever, but it's hard. It's, I don't know. It's almost like to be as fiery about certain things, whatever issue it is it just, I think there's so many life is so complex, and there's so many nuances, and people are coming from all these different places. And there's something I've found personally rewarding in trying to, have compassion and try to understand where someone else is coming from versus, being able to put us in different boxes.
Yeah, I know myself, and I think there's probably other people in this space that are like me. I'm a bit of a values martyr. The edges come out when people that have potential choose not to step into that. And I don't have a lot of time for those folks. And we really hope that every company we work with will step forward. But I think that the riskiest thing companies can do right now is nothing. Like it's time to move on this. And really just feeling so blessed and so privileged that I get to be here right now doing this work. It feels like most of the time I feel like I'm delivering flowers to people for good reasons, like not bad reasons, but like I'm a happy flower delivery. Both Brianna and I, and Eileen, our other team member, we're the happy flower people.
Oh, Kristy, I love it. It's been so fun for me to watch your evolution too in business. That this is, I remember being in your offices in Halifax. We had Scout and Burrow, and we played that card game to help me figure out the direction of the company.
We still do that. It blows companies' minds every time we do that. We've evolved it, but that's one of those things. Like if, I think a great tidbit for companies is you're not your own hero. You're a mentor, and you're Yoda, and Luke is your customer, and you got to invite them on a journey with you to fulfill their own potential. And by doing that well, you get to fulfill your own potential as that mentor, And so I think that's just such an important piece that I love that. And we still do communications work. We just don't do it for anybody that we haven't audited and worked with them on their BHAG. Because I think if you don't have a BHAG, you don't have a communication strategy. You need to have that North Star that everybody can point to and tell their friends about.
Just like what our last guest said, Dave. We talked to Steve Waxman, former Warner Brothers executive, and What an incredible guy. You should check him out. He's coaching musicians in how to, thrive in business. And one of his biggest things, he said, when people start out is like, figure out what you care about. And that's right from the beginning. Like, don't figure out your impact later. It's right from the beginning. It's integrated. Like, he's talking strategically for business. And I was like, that's awesome. Because innately, most artists and musicians get this stuff already, but they don't really understand that business part. They're like, but he's trying to help people in that space, which is really cool. Kristy, you are so full of good little nuggets. Like the biggest risk for businesses to do right now is nothing. That's my takeaway for this conversation. Dave, what about you?
Well, I was just thinking, is along those lines. I was thinking that what's nice is that now someone who's thinking about it and it feels very daunting has a place to go, and to call Decade or to become part of the program you were describing. What's the 80? What's it again?
Getting to 80.
We have our Getting to 80, and we have our Mobilize, which is our in-company program that we do with teams.
Okay.
And that is exciting, to take teams of up to 20 and 30 people on a journey through impact together to define those BHAGs and define that mission together. That's pretty exciting work. To get to see people, with a spring in their step, it's just makes food taste better. And it does, it makes.
I'm just laughing because you're so brilliant with your words, like these little nuggets of descriptors and explainers. I love it. Makes the food taste better.
You go through this and your food, and I'm like, damn, I like food already. So now
can you tell that Kristy comes from the marketing communications background? She just gets how to tell stories. So
totally. So how do people reach you and learn more about you and the awesome work you guys are doing?
Well, they can go to our website, decadeimpact.com. They can find us on LinkedIn, our social media, all under Decade Impact. And I think I'll leave you with two more nuggets. Inevitably, every company we work with in one way or another is better than they thought they were. And so when we get to bring that and put that to them, you're already doing this good. It takes all that fear away. Mm. And so that's a piece that's always really inspiring for us. And don't be afraid of the shadows. Don't be afraid to look at the things that don't work or make you uncomfortable, because that is probably where your biggest impacts are. That's probably where that innovation within your organization is really seated in. And that's really exciting to unpack that stuff and look at it and kind of take a deep breath and go, okay, now this is the clay with which we will craft elegant solutions.
Love it.
Awesome. I think that's a very good takeaway.
Do you know what it just reminds me of? Like, and it's, different worlds in a way, but when you take a leader through, and you've done this, Greg, a 360 leadership assessment, and people are so, you talk about these dark corners, people are so worried, and rightly so. And I think that's a normal human thing, because I know when I go through it, I'm like, oh, what's going to come up, and it all inevitably will point out all these wonderful strengths the person has. And then it will pick up on our areas of opportunity, let's call them. And my, I'm just for myself, I always go, well, wouldn't you rather know than not know, like what people are thinking, because they're thinking it. So it's going to be there. It exists. It's just, do I want to bring it into my consciousness? And then now I have a choice. I can do something about it because I have awareness. So that's what reminded me of you describing that for it's kind of like a 360 on a business, right?
It is. And, one of the ways we communicate that is impact literacy. Once companies build that impact literacy, they start to see it everywhere. And they start to see those levers everywhere and those opportunities. And it really changes the dynamic. It changes internal dynamics. CEOs get a little closer to the factory floor, and those folks on the factory floor get a little closer to the executive suite. And that is really, really important, because, CEOs are decision machines, and they need that input. They need that information to make good choices, to lead their teams.
Kristy, thank you so much. We love having you on here.
I got a last kind of odd question. Having lived in Vancouver for 8 years, and you said you're in your apartment, and I'm in my head trying to imagine where your apartment is.
I am in a small beach community called Kitsilano.
You're in Kitsilano. What a paradise!
You know what? Okay, I was wondering, and then I was thinking, or Marpole. Anyways, there's a certain structure of building.
My best friend lives in Dunbar, and a lot of my really close friends live in Kits, and I love it. And secret story: the rain comes straight down here.
Wow.
Yes.
No, it was real. Didn't know it could be.
It just comes straight down.
It comes straight down. It's like a rain shower, like a fancy hotel. It's not like it. It's not like the East Coast where you're like a Spartan with your umbrella. Like,
yes,
not to put down the East Coast. You guys got heart for days.
Well, listen, when I lived in Surrey for a little while Jessica was doing some of her residency work, I was amazed. It was February. And number one, there was palm trees in a lot of people's front yards, oddly. It's like, what? And this in the winter. You get a little sprinkling of snow in the morning, maybe. And it was just like no jacket weather through February. And then you drive for 25 minutes and you're in deep powder, snowboarding, looking over the city. I love Vancouver. Now, I haven't lived there as long as you have. I was only there for, a number of months, but there's elements of that place that I just love. And I'm envious.
that little dusting of snow, I got very used to it. And I was coming to New Brunswick, talking to my friend, saying, "So what's it like, in terms of weather-wise? Because it's a coastal town, St. John." He said, "Well, similar to Vancouver, you have the odd snow day." And I stupidly believed him and arrived, no winter jacket, and I was digging my car out in March, just cursing him. I stayed here, I love it, but I do miss, in Kitsilano, I don't know if it's still there, but one of my favorite places to go is the King's Head. I don't know if it's still.
Oh, I think it is still there. It's down on you. It's down on the beach.
Yeah,
it is still there. Yeah.
Good fun times.
And I don't want to big up Vancouver too much because, but I really do miss the East Coast. And for me, like that Atlantic bubble, those, the East Coast, it's almost like a different country. The culture, people are so kind and so friendly and really so inclusive. Vancouver could learn a lot. Vancouverites, they should all have to do an exchange and live in the Maritimes for a period of time. So they come back and they know that when I say hi to them on the road, I'm not going to take
I was just going to bring that up. It's so funny because I remember, you arrive and you should say hi back, Dave. I'm like, but it's so weird. Everyone's saying hi to me,
What do they stop want? The car when you're walking across the street. They stop the car. Listen, here's a closing note.
The hand wave on the steering wheel.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, I probably know you or your auntie. Here's one little special last nugget on St. John, totally unrelated to the conversation we've been having, is the other day I saw a funeral procession. And I remember when my grandfather died, it was so emotional to see people stopping in their cars while the funeral procession goes on. And you see these just average looking people who are walking the street stop, take their hats off. And I was like, that still happens today. It's a thing. And I don't know if it's just a St. John thing or if it's all through the Maritimes, but I was like, how special is that? And because I've witnessed it on the inner side, of course, I practice it too. And what a nice little nugget of that community glue that you're talking about. And it's because most people will lose somebody in their life and they'll go through a funeral procession and see that gesture. And I don't know if that relates to our conversation here or not, but it's making impact, right?
It makes the food taste better.
And it makes food taste better. And we can just all take our caps off and take a moment and stand in reverence of old school business and its funeral procession.
There we go. I love it. I will crack a banana to that one.
Awesome.
Okay.
I'm not going to make bad jokes. I'm not going to do it.
Okay, either will I. I retract.
Keeping it clean today. I'm keeping it clean.
Kristy, thank you. And we can't wait for you to be our first ever fourth guest one day. It will happen.
And I want to thank you both for taking the time today. And Dave, I know we don't know each other very well. We've never actually met in person. I don't believe.
I don't think so. No.
I think so. But so nice to connect with you. And Greg, I do think of you often, and I hope you're doing well. And I do think a little kudos to you. You're one of those people that inspired the rounding my edges.
Thank you, Kristy.
You're so loving and you're so like leading with your heart that it works.
It's the easiest approach for me. It takes me a little more work to be sharp. So
that's a good description of Greg for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Kristy.
Awesome seeing you.
Okay,
Thank you
and Dave, thank you as well, my friend. And we will see you next time we record. And thank you to the Boiling Point community for sticking with us for the 30 years we've been doing this. And here's to another 60.
Hey.
Here's to another 80. How's that? Bam.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, guys. See you later.
See ya.
Thanks again,
Thanks
Kristy.
for checking out this episode of Boiling Point. Remember to rate and subscribe to us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter at Boiling Point Pod. To see more from Dave Vale, check out leadershipunleashed.ca or visioncoachinginc.com. And on Twitter at Dave_Vale. And to catch up with Greg, visit hemmingshouse.com and at Greg Hemmings on Twitter. Thanks for listening, and remember, keep that pot boiling.